Butler.
Thank you, Mr. Deputy Speaker, and it's a privilege to be able to contribute to this debate and all the great speeches today. I thank my honourable friend from Dulwich and West Norwood for securing this debate today, and also for ensuring that we've managed to get the Speaker's apartments for a Windrush celebration next week in conjunction with Jamaica National and The Voice. So I thank the honourable member for making that happen. I agree with the points that were raised in her speech in regard to the Black Cultural Archives and making sure that they receive funding, and the 22nd of June being Windrush Day for us to celebrate. And I also pay respects to the survivors of Grenfell today, and I will be on the silent march with my honourable friend from Hackney after this debate. Mr. Deputy Speaker, I'd like to paint a picture of an expat who came from Jamaica, an expat named Jeff. And when he landed, he had his hat, he was pressed and dressed, as they like to say. His clothes were very smartly pressed, and he had his grip, which to everybody else is a suitcase. He walked with his grip, and when he landed, he was shocked by the smog that confronted him, the fact that all of these houses were so close together that he thought they were factories. That there were no front gardens or back gardens, which was very different from the green grass of home. And this was his motherland. And as he passed the houses and the places that said no blacks, no Irish, no dogs, he made his way to a shared house in East London, where it was owned by a Jewish family who were great allies of the Windrush generation. That expat was my father. And his first job, which he got almost immediately, was working for Matchbox, making little toy cars. They no longer exist. I'm sure there might still be some in the loft that might be worth some money right now. And then when that closed, he then worked for London Underground. And all that time, he also worked as a gigging musician. And he used to tell me about the stories of him singing in the pubs where black people were not even welcomed or were scared to go. And I feel that when my dad came to this country, he contributed greatly, not only in the work that he did, but in breaking down societal barriers, so many barriers. And once he made enough money, he rented a room and sent for my mother. And my mother came to this country and was surprised at a number of things. That food was cooked without any seasoning, that English people only bathed once a week and went to bathhouses, and that children didn't have school clothes, playing out clothes and church clothes, because that was an absolute must in the Jamaican household. And the contribution of the Windrush generation is vast and varied. They were proud not only in how they dressed, but they were proud in how they were as a community, and they were proud of their motherland, as they called it. And they did not know the Jamaican national anthem because they came before Jamaica became independent. They only knew the British national anthem. So can you imagine this generation of people who came to this country to rebuild this country with such pride in not only how they looked, but how they conducted themselves? Can you imagine now, in 2018, feeling surplus to requirements, after giving this country the best years of their lives, they've been told that they need to go back, or they are illegal, or they're no longer wanted. It's quite heartbreaking. And when you hear the stories of people and the people that come into my surgery in tears, clutching as much bits of paper that they can find, or when you get emails from teachers who say, I remember teaching the children of the Windrush generation, and is there anything that I can do? Will the government accept my evidence to prove that these people were here as British citizens? It's heartbreaking. And it's more heartbreaking because the Prime Minister was the one who created the hostile environment. And I don't think in the history of our government that, I will in just a moment, I don't think in the history of this Parliament that we have a Prime Minister who was actually the Home Secretary and therefore shoulders full responsibility for the hostile environment. I give way.
I take the lady's point, the Honourable Lady's point, and I hope she will take this in the spirit which is meant. I share passionately, as she knows, a desire for this situation to be addressed. I have written about it, I have condemned the policy very vocally. But one must recognise that this came out of a period when both parties were doing the same thing. And I don't say that with any joy. I think the shame is shared, and it was certainly not with any joy, I'm sure, but she will recognise that Home Secretaries under her own party also spoke about a hostile environment. I'm afraid, sadly, it is something that this whole House has to bear, not just one party.
I thank the member for his contribution, and I take his point that parties spoke about the hostile environment. The big difference being that the Prime Minister as Home Secretary not only spoke about it, but created policies that ensured that a number of people then became implicit in creating the hostile environment. And I'm talking about doctors and nurses and teachers and landlords. And they became implicit in this hostile environment. And I think it's not only unusual, but it's very rare and dangerous that somebody in authority instructs people to create a hostile environment on their own citizens. And we have to be very mindful. And my coming to the backbenches to join in this debate today has created, and it could be just coincidence, Mr. Speaker, but it's created a flurry of activity in my office as they received a call from the Prime Minister's office in regards to several letters that I'm still yet to get a response to. As I said, it could be just coincidence. And the thing is this, I will, just for the House's records, just state some of the points that my letter raises that I'm still waiting a response to. In regards to cases, how and when they will be expedited, the new pathways that need to be created and fast-tracked naturalisation, which can cost around £2,000, which we've been assured will be waived. Also need to be waived the Life in the UK test. And this is so important because those people that have been victimised at the moment are ageing, and they are a pensionable age, and they need access to health care, and some of that's being denied. So we need a clear timetable when all of this will be achieved, and the clear timetable for compensation. And the other thing that I asked in my letter is if the Prime Minister was warned that her decision to tighten immigration controls and a hostile environment would harm Commonwealth citizens who were here legally. I'm yet to receive a response, and I need to receive that response. And it's very important, not just because I'm a daughter of the Windrush generation, because Martin Luther King said that if you are not opposed to a system of detrimental actions or incarcerations, you then become implicit in it. And I do not want to be implicit in the actions of this government that has created legislation that is institutionally racist. My honourable friend from Tottenham spoke about the injustices of slavery and of those people who were enslaved. I can say to my honourable friend that I agree wholeheartedly with everything that he said. And the Labour government will create a slavery educational trust based on the Holocaust Memorial Educational Trust, because the international slave trade was an African Holocaust. And I think that we've heard lots of contributions today about slavery and the enslavement and how it ended, and I think what we need is more of a factual talk, discussion and education around the issue. And a slavery educational trust will enable that to happen and be able to quash some of those misunderstandings and misnomers. And I'd like to conclude with this, Mr. Speaker. I don't think the Prime Minister is a bad person, but I do wonder if she really understands the emotional and generational trauma she has created with her, not just words, but her actions of a hostile environment. I struggle, and it pains me to highlight that the policies are institutionally racist, but they are. And as the Prime Minister and her government work through the race audit that she instructed the civil servants to deliver, I hope that she would also implement Section 1 of the Equality Act 2010 that talks about the socio-economic duty of government. And I say that as we celebrate, thanks to my honourable friend, the 70th anniversary of Windrush, we don't just need to appreciate, but we need to compensate as well. And I will end with a quote from Martin Luther King. He said, "The time is always right to do the right thing." And I hope that the government, I hope that the minister, when he gets to his feet, will go some way to talking about the right thing that this government will do. And I hope the Prime Minister will reflect on our hostile environment and do the right thing. Thank you.
Deirdre.